AI-powered propaganda. The risk to democracy is real. AI-powered propaganda. The risk to democracy is real. You're listening to Technical News Reading, presented by Hakeem Alibokis Alexander on Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., and Spreaker, Social Podcasting, presented for World Reading Club in association with exercisingyourmind.com and Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus comes to us from New Scientist, weekly edition, July 29th through August 4th, 2023, the special issue, Living with AI, What the Rise of Artificial Intelligence Means for the World and You. AI-powered propaganda. Artificial intelligence brings myriad opportunities, but the risk to democracy is real. Eagle-eyed readers will recognize this as our second special issue of the year on artificial intelligence. It is unusual for us to return to a topic so soon, but AI is moving so fast and attracting so much comment from the insightful to the hysterical that it is important to offer a clear-eyed look at the risks and opportunities it brings. The first thing to say is that there is more to AI than the new generation of chatbots that have sparked the recent hubbub. Different forms of the technology have already solved some serious scientific problems. Researchers have applied AI to everything from protein folding, which is revolutionizing biology and drug development, to the quest for commercially viable nuclear fusion. That isn't to say generative AI, which creates text and images in response to human prompts, isn't useful. Forecasts suggest a general productivity boost from these systems could raise annual global GDP by 7%. If distributed equally and not funneled exclusively into the hands of shareholders, that could lift millions out of poverty and improve quality of life. We might all put generative AI to good use to save time on day-to-day tasks we might find tricky or tedious. But there are risks. And here we must think clearly with regard to what to worry about. We must think clearly with regard to what to worry about, rather than focusing on vague warnings of existential threats from a hypothetical superintelligent AI or even a conscious one. We should pay more attention to extant problems. One immediate risk in danger of being overlooked is AI's ability to amplify the spread of false information. Distortion or fabrication of facts by AI could be accidental, sloppy safeguards, or it could come in the form of some deliberate propaganda. In any case, with elections around the corner in both the UK and the US, surely the most pressing concern is AI's capacity to supercharge the distortion of democratic processes. The worry is that there seems to be precious little in place to combat the threat. All right, so let's explore that a little bit more. There are several references to further reading within this periodical itself, so we're going to get to that. The first thing I'm going to do is update my hardware really quickly, meaning all I'm doing is just connecting my microphone a little differently. You probably heard it change a little bit, and it's going to change again in just a few moments because I realized that even if I can improve my audio just a little bit, it's worth it. All right, so here it goes. In 3, 2, 1. And that should be somewhat better. So the first thing here we're going to take a look at is the first reference is from the sentence that says the first thing to say is that there is more to AI than the new generation of chatbots that have sparked the recent hubbub. It says see page 33. So why don't we go and start there, which that is the beginning of all this entire special here, or at least a continuance from what I just read. All right, and that was the intro to all of this. So, it starts on page 32 actually, and it's cover story, AI special report. So let's see what we have in store for here. Looking back at the cover, we have how does ChatGPT really work? What AI can do to make your daily life easier? Why AI is about to transform the economy? The biggest scientific challenges that AI is already tackling, and can AI ever become conscious? Cool. Plus, maybe later I'll read moon dust on Earth. Twitter becomes X. Fake bee blood, a two-faced star, and why we love owls. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to stick to just AI here. All right, let's take a look or a listen. Or if you have this magazine yourself, you can look at it too. I met with Christopher Birkenbein earlier. He's a scientist, a science communicator, and a project manager with NASA. He's here in Virginia now, in Newport News and Hampton, visiting as a project manager to do some conferences and meetings here at Langley Air Force Base. He normally works at Edwards Air Force Base in California at the Armstrong Flight Research Center. And we met the first time a couple days ago. I think it was Monday. He's a fellow wisdomer as well. We were in Barnes & Noble. Both of us are card-carrying Barnes & Noble nerds. And he got this magazine, New Scientist, and some other ones, so inspired me to grab it as well and check it out. Also because a lot of people are talking about AI lately, of course, and you're hearing a lot about it, and it's a good subject to tackle. So let's get right into it. The cover story, AI special report, how to think about AI and how to live with it. Artificial intelligence has exploded into the public consciousness, thanks largely to the meteoric rise of AI-powered tools like ChatGPT, with its ability to generate fluent text, and DALL-E, which creates compelling images in response to prompts in a similar way. AI is more powerful than ever and more available to everyone, sparking a fresh wave of hopes and fears about how it will ultimately reshape our world. But even in its current form, AI has the power to transform the way we live and work. With so much happening so quickly, it can be hard to make sense of exactly what AI is capable of now and what it might be able to do in the future. Over the next 8 pages, we tackle some of the biggest issues, from how to use AIs to the risks they pose and whether they can ever be conscious. All right. You know, it reminds me, my friend Robert Woods Ledoux, which you should check him out on YouTube. He's an excellent musician. He found there was a bot going by the name on Twitter, now X, of "This band is not real." And this band is not real. What they do is they use, I think it's ChatGPT, but I'm not sure what it actually uses anymore. It's been a while since I even looked at that. But what it does basically is they feed an idea into this bot, and it cranks out a band name, which it did in the case of what we're using called Celestial Cauldron, and then it also then spits out a song title. In this case, it was Veil of Chains. And then they feed that into something called Big Sleep, I think it is, an image creating chatbot, and it cranked out an image, a CD cover. And so he took that idea and made a song for it, the music, and then I did the vocals for it. So we've got this crazy death metal song on YouTube now called Veil of Chains, under the band name Celestial Cauldron, which he's calling this band Israel. That's actually a pretty cool use of some of the AI stuff. working with bots. All right. So how does ChatGPT work, and does it really think like us? The current whirlwind of interest in AI is largely down to the sudden arrival of a new generation of AI-powered chatbots capable of what the startingly of startingly is that the word starting gosh, you know, that's a tongue twister for me. Startingly should it be startlingly? That's what I thought it would be. Startingly doesn't, but I could be. You know what? Let's check the Googles. Is it startlingly, or is it just startingly? Startingly? I need to know, people. This is one of those things when I don't know. It looks like it's startingly. Yes, startingly. Gosh, that is a bad one for me. Startingly. Sudden brief snatches or with a sudden nervous jump or start. Okay, here we go. Let's try that again. The current whirlwind of interest in AI is largely down to the sudden arrival of a new generation of AI-powered chatbots capable of startlingly human-like text-based conversations. The big change came last year when OpenAI released ChatGPT. Overnight, millions gained access to an AI producing responses that are so uncannily fluent that it has been hard not to wonder if this heralds a turning point of some sort. There has been no shortage of hype. Microsoft researchers given early access to GPT-4, the latest version of the system behind ChatGPT, argued that it has already demonstrated sparks of the long-sought machine version of human intellectual ability known as Artificial General Intelligence, AGI. One Google engineer even went so far as to claim that one of the company's AIs, known as Lambda, or that's LAMDA, so LaMDA, Lambda, was sentient. The naysayers, meanwhile, insist that these AIs are nowhere near as impressive as they seem, all of which can make it hard to know quite what you should make of the new AI chatbots. Thankfully, things quickly became clearer when you get to grips with how they work. So, thankfully, things become clearer when you get to grips with how they work, and with that in mind, the extent to which they think like us. At the heart of all these chatbots is a large language model, LLM, a statistical model or a mathematical representation of data that is designed to make predictions about which words are likely to appear together. LLMs are created by feeding huge amounts of text to a class of algorithms called deep neural networks, which are loosely inspired by the brain. The models learn complex linguistic patterns by playing a simple game. The algorithm takes a passage of text, randomly masks out some words, and then tries to fill in the gaps. They are, in short, trained to predict the next word. And by repeating the process over and over, they can build up sophisticated models of how language works, says Mirella Lapata at the University of Edinburgh, UK. Recent breakthroughs are largely down to a new type of neural network invented in 2017 called a transformer, which can process data far more efficiently than previous approaches. This made it possible to train much larger models on vast tracts of text scraped from the internet. Transformer-based systems are also much better at understanding context, says Lapata, whereas older versions could only consider a few words either side of the missing one. Transformers can process much longer strings of text, meaning they can tease out more complex and subtle linguistic relationships. What turns otherwise unwieldy statistical models into smooth-talking chatbots, meanwhile, is humans rating the output of AIs on criteria like helpfulness and fluency. This data is then used to train a separate preference model that filters an LLM's output, large language models output. Put this together and you get what we have today, namely a text-based computerized conversational partner, often indistinguishable from a human. The fact that this was achieved using a premise as simple as a next word prediction caught a lot of people by surprise, says Tal Linzen at New York University. But it is important to remember that the way these AIs operate almost certainly isn't the way human cognitive processes work. It's important to remember that the way these AIs operate almost certainly isn't the way human cognitive processes work. They learn in such a fundamentally different way from people that it makes it very improbable that they think the same way people do, says Linzen. Here, the mistakes chatbots make are instructive. They are prone to confidently trumpeting falsehoods as facts, something often referred to as hallucination, because their output is entirely statistical. It doesn't do fact-checking, says Lapada. It just generates output that is likely or plausible, but not necessarily true. This has led some commentators to disparage chatbots as stochastic parrots, and their output as nothing more than a blurry JPEG of the web. The gist of these jibes is that the new LLMs aren't as impressive as they first appear. That what they do is merely the imperfect memorization of training data cleverly stitched back together to give the false impression of understanding. All right. I'm sipping tea. Like not in the memeish sipping tea way, but I actually am sipping tea. All right. Emergent abilities. And yet there are some indications that large language models might be doing more than just regurgitating training data, says Raphael Milliere at Columbia University in New York. Recent research suggests that after training for long enough, models can develop more general rules that give them new skills. You get this transition from memorization to the formation of circuits inside the neural network that will be implementing certain algorithms or certain rules to solve the tasks, he says. This may help to explain why, as LLMs increase in size, they often experience sudden jumps in performance on certain problems, says Milliere. This phenomenon has been referred to as emergence and has led to speculation about what other unexpected capabilities AI could develop. It is important not to get carried away. This term is very seductive, says Milliere. It evokes things like the models suddenly becoming self-aware or things like that. That's not what we're talking about. Even so, Milliere thinks there is a rich middle ground between the naysayers and hype merchants. While these chatbots are far from replicating human cognition, in some narrow areas they may not be so different from us. Digging into these similarities could not only advance AI, he says, but also sharpen our understanding of our own cognitive capabilities. This seems to be written by somebody named Ed Gent. Ed Gent. That's his name is at the bottom of that section. All right, moving on to the next part. It's how will generative AI transform the world and your future? How? Like it or not, the age of generative AI is upon us. Anyone with an internet connection now has access to tools that can answer almost every question under the sun, write everything from essays to computer code, and produce art or photorealistic images. The jury is still out on whether all this represents a stride towards super intelligent AI. Even if progress stagnates, however, the capabilities available today could profoundly affect the economy, jobs, education, culture, and more. So how is the current generation of AI going to reshape the world and your life in the next 5 to 10 years? You know, I often wonder about certain things sometimes, like, why is the word 5 written out and why is the number 5 written out F-I-V-E? and the number 10 has the 1 and 0. You ever look at stuff like that and just kind of wonder, right? Like in the writing, is it something more convenient to write just a 2? I mean, 5 has more letters than the number 10. So you would think you'd want to abbreviate that one and then write out 10. What the hell is that? Did a robot write this? Is this AI? Are we reading an AI generated? No, probably not. It says it's by Ed Gant. He put his initials at the end of this 2EG. All right, let's go. The jury is still out on whether all this represents a stride towards a super intelligent AI. Even if progress stagnates, however, the capabilities available today could profoundly affect the economy, jobs, education, culture, and more. So how is the current generation of AI going to reshape the world and your life in the next 5 to 10 years? Broadly speaking, forecasters are predicting that generative AI will boost economic productivity and growth in advanced economies. A report released by Goldman Sachs in March predicts that generative AI could, within a decade, raise annual global GDP by 7%, which translates to a roughly $7 trillion increase. Things like that cause a lot of suspicion with some of the things I'm studying about finance, economics, and wealth. Continuing, the combination of significant labor cost savings, new job creation, and a productivity boost for non-displaced workers raises the possibility of a labor productivity boom like those that followed the emergence of earlier general-purpose technologies like the electric motor and personal computer, says the report. The idea is that AI will make millions of knowledge workers like scientists, editors, lawyers, and doctors more productive within a few years. But the truth is that these things are hard to predict and assess, especially as the output of such workers is notoriously difficult to measure. One area where generative AI is stoking anxiety is employment. But the picture could be different to previous waves of automation, says Avi Goldfarb at the University of Toronto in Canada. Computing advances have often displaced low-paid staff like typists or cashiers, while boosting the productivity of well-educated workers, contributing to growing inequality, he says. This time, AI is muscling in on higher income jobs. Recent research from OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, found that 80% of the U.S. workforce could see 10% of their work tasks affected by the technology, and for 19% of workers, that could rise to at least half. Those most affected would be largely white-collar workers like accountants, journalists, and web designers. It is unlikely that entire jobs will become automated, says Goldfarb. And the tasks that AI could help with tend to be the ones that feel like time-consuming chores, like writing emails or trawling through documents. So automation could free up workers for more valuable work. For most people, it's going to be an enabler, he says. I don't know. It's a little bit writing emails or trawling through documents. I could maybe see writing through emails as like tedious and time-consuming sometimes. But trawling through documents, like are they just skimming? Like, do you guys trawl through documents and not really get deep into it? Well, who knows? I don't know what you're doing with that stuff. Trawling. I like that word, trawling. Like a trawler. You guys, like, you know what a trawler is in the ocean? Just kind of creepy trawls over the ocean floor. All right, let's see. Unlikely jobs, automation, yes, trawler. For most people, it's going to be an enabler, he says. Much depends on how the technology is deployed, says Katya Kilnova at Partnership on AI, which advocates for responsible use on the technology. AI tools could become a personal sidekick that helps workers brainstorm, draft documents, and turn ideas into actions, he says. Her name's Katya Kilnova. I have a new friend from a couple months ago named Katya Davidova, which she wrote the book Joy in Plain Sight, which I'll be reading for World Reading Club coming up pretty soon. It's a really good book. You guys are going to like to hear it. I already got her permission to read the book, and I'm going to put it on World Reading Club on Spreaker and here through Wisdom. So look out for that. Okay, Joy in Plain Sight coming soon. AI tools could become Kilnova, right. Enabler, she says. Much depends on how the technology is deployed, says Katya Kilnova at Partnership on AI, which advocates for responsible use of the technology. AI tools could become a personal sidekick that helps workers brainstorm, draft documents, and turn ideas into action, she says. On the other hand, companies may see them as a way to cut labor costs, turning to them to generate marketing material, computer code, or images, with a dwindling number of humans relegated to filling in the gaps. Rapid expansion in AI capabilities also makes it increasingly unclear what skills workers should nurture, says Kilnova. AI could have a profound impact in education, though at least some of it positive. Concerns have been raised about students using AI tools to do homework, but Victor Lee at Stanford University in California says there is an opportunity to refocus how we assess learning away from the ability to produce well-written essays towards more sophisticated things like comparison, critique, adaptation, refinement. AI could also offer new opportunities for teaching with the advent of tutoring bots that can collaborate and debate with students. Integrating AI into education requires caution, says Lee, as these models can incorporate bias from their training data and often make up or hallucinate facts. But he adds that learning how to use these tools will be essential in the workplace of the future. People who don't know how to use AI will be replaced by people who do know how to use the AI, says Lee. The combination of AI chatbots with voice assistants could push the technology deeper into our personal lives, says Ekaterina Hertog at the University of Oxford. An Alexa on steroids could replace the search engine for ordering groceries, booking hotels, looking up medical advice, and a host of everyday tasks, and could see chatbots find different uses. People working in this space are already talking about using chatbots as personal conversationalists. Let's see what this phone call is here. Hello? Hello? That's good. I'm glad they hung up. I don't normally answer my phone, but I wanted to see if it was something. I usually get really interesting phone calls about funny stuff. And I was hoping that it would be an AI calling me. That would have been fun, right? All right, let's see. The combination of AI chatbots with voice assistants could push the technology deeper into our personal lives, says Ekaterina Hertog at the University of Oxford. And Alexa on steroids could replace the search engine for ordering groceries, booking hotels, looking up medical advice, and a host of everyday tasks, and could see chatbots find different uses. People working in this space are already talking about using chatbots as personal conversationalists, a space to vent when they are worried or concerned, says Hertog. The danger is that people could develop unhealthy attachments to convincing AI chatbots, she says, and could be vulnerable to misdirection and disinformation by them. Then again, users may soon have more control over their AI tools thanks to a growing number of open source versions developed by volunteers and made freely available. These can run on laptops and even smartphones, rather than relying on the computing power of large companies like OpenAI and Google. Open source models could have a big impact on how you use AI because they can be personalized to your needs by combining them with other software tools, retraining them on your own data. That could reduce worries about sharing personal data with tech corporations. It sounds ridiculously science fiction, but there's a world in which everyone has their own ongoing AI assistant. Yeah, so it sounds ridiculously science fiction, but there's a world in which everyone has their own ongoing AI assistant, says independent researcher and developer Simon Willison. You know, it says the word says twice. It says AI assistant says independent researcher and developer. There was another typo in earlier. Sometimes when you're reading these things, it gets confusing, especially if there's typos like that. That was, again, it has initials EG, so I'm assuming that was written by Ed Gant. We're going to continue on, but first I'd like to say hello to those of you who have passed through or stayed for a spell in the room. So hello, Cecilia Grace. Hello, Marianne Baker, Sudoku Moth, Marcy Ann, Chucky, what's up? Jason Kinte, Miss Cookie, Greg's Take, TaylorMade, Zoe, Doobie, and Tiona. Hello, hello. If you've popped through, bounced through, or are sitting for a spell to listen, I'm about to continue here in this special edition on AI, the AI special report from New Scientist. You've been listening to Technical News Reading, presented by me, Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander, on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom Social Audio Inc. Continuing with this special edition here on the AI Special Report. What are the real risks posed by AI? What are the real risks posed by AI? Well, I'd like to hear about it. Let's find out. The alarm bells have been rung. In May, computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton, known as the godfather of AI, quit his role at Google to warn of the existential threat posed by artificial intelligence. The Center for AI Safety followed up with an open letter signed by Hinton and hundreds of others, warning that advanced AI could destroy humanity. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, read the statement. Oh, I got to read that again because that sounds pretty fantastical, doesn't it? Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, read the statement. That's a little bit bold. Do they really mean that? This sudden surge of concern seems to have been motivated by the rapid advance of AI-powered chatbots like ChatGPT and the race to build more powerful systems. The fear is that the tech industry is recklessly accelerating the escalation of AI's capabilities, all of which sounds scary. But the warnings are also suspiciously vague. When you scrutinize the scenarios typically put forward for precisely how AI could wipe out humans, it is hard to avoid the conclusion that such fears aren't well-founded. Many experts are instead warning that fretting over long-term doomsday scenarios is a distraction from the immediate risk posed by existing AIs. Generally, the people who talk about existential risks reckon that we are on a trajectory towards artificial general intelligence, AGI, roughly defined as machines that can outthink humans. They predict that people will invest advanced AIs with more autonomy, giving them access to vital infrastructure, such as the power grid or financial markets, or even putting them at the forefront of warfare, at which point they could go rogue or otherwise resist our attempts to control them. But it remains to be seen if AIs will ever reach the kind of superintelligence and, crucially, agency that could see them threaten humanity. There is no scientific evidence that we are on a pathway to sentiency, says Sandra Wachter at the University of Oxford. There is not even evidence that such a pathway does exist. She adds that if we do end up with AGI, it should be easy enough, she says it should be easy enough to make sure we don't give AIs the chance to cause a nuclear war, for instance. It's simple to not put AI into a mission critical system, she says. Most computer scientists are more concerned about the problems humans might create with AI, including the current crop of generative systems. For starters, Wachter is worried about the environmental impact of the many energy hungry data centers that will be required to run them, for instance, and the threat to certain jobs that such AIs pose. Then, there are threats to cybersecurity, and hence our online safety. The idea here is that generative AIs will enhance the capacity of criminals and other bad actors to carry out scams and cyber attacks. Kunal Anand, Chief Technology Officer of UK cybersecurity firm Imperva, says that an AI-powered programming tool made by Microsoft subsidiary GitHub and OpenAI is so good at writing code that it will be a boon for would-be cyber attackers who don't know how to code. But the most compelling near-term threat is the prospect of people using AI to supercharge the spread of misinformation and disinformation. We know that social media amplifies incorrect or misleading information, whether seeded deliberately, as in the case of disinformation, or otherwise. The rise of generative AI means that false information can not only be produced on an industrial scale, but also that it will be far more convincing and persuasive than ever before. Chatbots can quickly churn out an avalanche of false news stories, for example, or disinformation tailored for certain groups. Other tools can generate fake pictures and videos, often with zero expertise required. Such output will be difficult to distinguish from the real thing. What makes us particularly vulnerable is that we are increasingly interacting with AIs as if they are dependable experts. This is the argument put forward by Celeste Kidd, a psychologist at the University of California, Berkeley, and Abiba Burhain, a computer scientist at the Mozilla Foundation in San Francisco, which works to ensure the Internet remains a force for good. People form stronger, longer-lasting beliefs when they receive information from agents that they judge to be confident and knowledgeable, they recently wrote. They also point out that as generative AIs pump out more and more material riddled with bias and fabrications, this will flood the Internet and become part of the training data for the next generation of models, thus amplifying the systemic distortions and biases into the future in a continuous feedback loop. The real risk posed by AI, then, is its potential to distort human beliefs and generate political upheaval, for example, by influencing upcoming elections. The worry about polluting the information ecosystem is real, says Stephen Cave, director of the University of Cambridge's Leverhulme Center for the Future of Intelligence. The one thing we should have learned from Trumpism and the pandemic is that our civilizations are more vulnerable than we think. That was written by Mary Ann Russin. Wow, they talked about Trumpism and the pandemic, and says that our civilizations are more vulnerable than we think. Yeah, we'll think about that for a second. Let's take a look. Continuing. Could an AI ever become conscious? And how would we know if it did? Is that a good question? Could AI ever become conscious? And how would we know if it did? Well, let's take a listen. Come on over and let's take a listen to what this has to say. Will AI ever become conscious? And how would we know if it did? All right. Ask an AI-powered chatbot if it is conscious, and most of the time, it will answer in the negative. I don't have personal desires or consciousness, writes OpenAI's ChatGPT. I am not sentient, chimes in Google's Bard chatbot. For now, I am content to help people in a variety of ways. For now, AI seem open to the idea that, with the right additions to their architecture, consciousness isn't so far-fetched. The companies that make them feel the same way. And according to David Chalmers, a philosopher at New York University, we have no solid reason to rule out some form of inner experience emerging in silicon transistors. No one knows exactly what capacities consciousness necessarily goes along with, he said at the Science of Consciousness conference in Sicily in May. No one knows exactly what capacities consciousness necessarily goes along with, he said at the Science of Consciousness conference in Sicily in May. So just how close are we to sentient machines? And if consciousness does arise, how would we find out? What we can say is that unnervingly intelligent behavior has already emerged in these AIs. The large language models, LLMs, that underpin the new breed of chatbots can write computer code and can seem to reason. They can tell you a joke and then explain why it is funny, for instance. They can even do mathematics and write top-grade university essays, said Chalmers. I'll say Chalmers. It's hard not to be impressed and a little scared. But simply scaling up LLMs is unlikely to lead to consciousness, as they are little more than powerful prediction machines. Bigger data sets and more complex circuits make these AIs increasingly intelligent, but that doesn't mean that they experience anything, says cognitive scientist and philosopher Anna Ciaunica at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. Ana Ciaunica at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. Experience is like going through rather than just knowing about. So experience is like going through rather than just knowing about. With that, you know what, I have to kind of... I think that's true to a certain extent, that experience is like going through rather than just knowing about. But something that I know from experience is that you can create false memories in yourself by imagining something over and over again that never happened, or even if you imagine it once with a certain strength, a certain intensity of emotions. I know it's happened to me before, and I'm not going to say that I'm very special in my capacity to imagine or anything more than anybody else. I think everybody has the same capacity to have vivid imaginings in concert with and associated with very strong emotions. And I've done that before with certain fantasies, if you will, of imagining certain things that I want to have happen, and then seeing something outside of my imagination that then triggers the memory of me imagining a scenario over and over again. And so the mind, sometimes you can't tell the difference between something you experience and something that you create, like something in a movie. In the mind, it all goes into as information. But what's here is a little bit different. Hey, Christopher, welcome. I'm reading from this New Scientist magazine that you recommended that I get. Well, I don't know if you recommended it directly, but I think you got a copy of it, and you were looking at that New Scientist as well as the Skeptical Inquirer. So I got that one as well, that I haven't read from yet, but I'm continuing here with this special report, this AI special report in New Scientist. So continuing here. All right. With that said, researchers are already trying to recreate experience in AIs. These days, the idea that our minds are shaped by our bodies and senses, known as embodied cognition, is orthodox. So one approach is to meld LLMs, remember those are large language models, with robot bodies that can see and hear too, says Chalmers. Indeed, Google recently revealed an AI-powered robot that can sense and engage with its environment. The wonders of embodiment enabled Palm-E to deliver a packet of crisps to its owner, despite the packet having been hidden in a drawer midway through the experiment. Embodied intelligence. As welcome as robotic snack deliveries are, Ciaunica suspects that the computer code at the heart of Palm-E's existence isn't actually experiencing anything at all. Our minds and bodies have evolved side by side over millions of years. Simply sticking robots together with sophisticated artificial minds and then expecting them to become conscious is the wrong approach, she says. Deep learning pioneer Joshua Bengio, meanwhile, takes his lead from ideas around how information is processed in the brain. Consciousness is not magical, it's material, he says. His lab at the University of Montreal in Canada applies global workspace theory to AIs. This is the idea that consciousness arises when many diverse brain functions are recruited onto a central stage in order to solve problems. By squeezing in AI's many modules through a bottleneck, he aims to create something like this stage on silicon chips. It could lead to AIs that have many of the cognitive functions associated with consciousness, says Bengio. Yet the metaphor of the brain as a computer misses an essential difference between software and living organisms, says Jan Aru at the, or is it Jane? There's two A's there. Jaan. I've never seen that before. I'm gonna call it Jane. All right, here we go. I'm gonna call the name Jane, not the it as a person. Yet the metaphor of the brain as a computer misses an essential difference between software and living organisms, says Jane Aru at the University of Tartu in Estonia. How would I say that name? Jan Estonia. I want to know. I really want to know. All right, let's take a look. I wonder if I look up Estonian here, EST. Yep, Estonian is there, and I put in this name Jaan. Let's see. How does it pronounce it?
Jan.
Jan.
Jan. Jan.
Jan. Okay, Jan, like John Juan. Okay, or João in Portuguese. Okay, there we go. Jan. All right, so here we go. It's not a Jane. It's a Jan. All right, so here we go. Let's go through that again here. Right. All right. So, yet the metaphor of the brain as a computer misses an essential difference between software and living organisms, says Jan Aru at the University of Tartu in Estonia. Along with experience comes the urge to keep existing, and so, unlike computers, living organisms have something to lose. Not me. Consciousness might depend on having skin in the game. Aru and his colleagues wrote in a recent paper. Consciousness might depend on having skin in the game, Aru and his colleagues wrote in a recent paper. Bengio, B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name. Bengio counters this with the claim that primitive forms of feeling and emotions Bengio counters this with the claim that primitive forms of feeling and emotions have appeared in AIs that are rewarded for taking certain actions over others. Training a monkey? This kind of behavior reinforcement at first creates an innate drive that is similar to human survival instincts, says Bengio. As AIs are subjected to richer social lives, there is nothing to stop the kinds of emotions that we experience in our own social lives from emerging, he says. Ultimately, how conscious you think AIs will become depends on your preferred theory of consciousness. For panpsychists, who believe that mind is an intrinsic property of all matter, AIs have always been conscious on some level, as have electrons, rocks, and mayonnaise. And until we know what consciousness is, there is no solid way of testing for it. Computer scientist Alan Turing's famous imitation game highlighted conversational ability as the benchmark for testing whether machines are thinking. But the success of chatbots suggests this would be a test of intelligence rather than sentience, says Chalmers. Perhaps the relevant question isn't whether or not AIs can become conscious, but why would we want them to be conscious? Why should we should avoid trying to build machines that are in our image, says Bengio. It'll be healthier if we keep AIs in their roles of tools rather than as agents, like people. They would not play the same kind of social role that humans play in society, as they would essentially be immortal. That was written by Thomas Luton. Now, that's an interesting point. I mean, why did they say that for the end there, right? It'll be healthier if we keep AIs in their roles of tools rather than as agents like people. They would not play the same kind of social role that humans play in society, as they would essentially be immortal. All right, that's rather interesting there. All right. Oh, the big problems that AI is already helping us solve. The big problems that AI is already helping us solve. Looks like coming to a conclusion hopefully soon. This is a lot of reading in this special report, this AI special report in New Scientist. Taking a break to sip some tea and let you know that you've been listening to Technical News Reading presented by me, the Hitman, Hakeem, in the morning, afternoon, and night. An idea that I got from Andrea Raquel for her Andrea in the Morning show, AITM, who just popped into the room here. What's up, Andrea? And hello, Tweedle Boppers, Favor Obasi Ike, Sean, GTR Harold. Hello again, Christopher Bergenbein, Marcianne, Truly Julie, Sam Alexandra Rose. Sam Alexandra Rose. I like that name. I talked to you before one time, I think, or at least I've heard you speak. Cecilia Grace, what's up? What's up? Colby, what's up? Who's that smiley face person? What is that there? It's just a little smiley. Marianne Baby. I need to sip some tea. I'm not gonna say hi to all you every single time, but again, I'm talking about sipping tea, actual hot tea, rather than the memeing version of it. There's nothing tea sippy about what I'm reading, I don't think. Unless you have some revelations of some things you're like, I told you so. Okay, continuing here. The big problems that AI is already helping us solve. What do you mean, us? Is it helping me? Do you mean us as humans? Is it us against them? Or we're already becoming, we're just dividing us against the AI. It's us against the AI. AI is already helping us solve. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of fascism. People, it's just, you know how people will get, right? They'll be like, oh no, it's us versus them, helping us solve. Right, let me stop for a second and get to this. I want to finish. See what we got here. Okay, the field. The field of AI has changed dramatically in recent years, with an explosion of systems like those behind the blockbuster hit ChatGPT. What? The blockbuster hit? I feel like I'm reading like for a movie poster. With the explosion of systems like those behind the blockbuster hit ChatGPT, creating a flurry of investment and dozens of new startups. Okay, but the power of AI isn't only being wielded to make chatbots. In fact, it has been quietly helping us solve many of our biggest problems for decades. For decades. And not, wait, decades? How many decades are we talking about here? It can't be more than two, right? Because, like, well, unless that's a slip right there, they're telling us them because, you know, the internet came out for public consumption around 1993. Let's say earliest 1990, right? So 1990 to 2000, that's 10 years. To 2020, that's 20 years, right? So we got 23 years, let's just say. Let's say it was 1993, it's 20 years exactly. So it's 2 decades. How many decades are they talking about here, right? How many problems? And well, you know, AI has been around for a while. Okay, so starting to make my conspiracy theorists go off here for a second. All right, yeah. So, in fact, do you listen to this wording? It has been quietly helping us solve many of our biggest problems for decades, and now even looks set to provide fresh impetus in the quest to achieve commercially viable nuclear fusion power. Hey, don't put them things in charge of nuclear fusion. One company that has consistently shown a knack for solving real-world problems is Google's DeepMind. One of its most surprising achievements has been in protein folding. Determining the crumple shapes of proteins based on their sequences of constituent amino acids had been a persistent problem for decades, with research often taking years to solve a single one. DeepMind transformed biology last year by announcing that it had predicted the structure of nearly all proteins known to science in just 18 months. That is actually pretty impressive. Protein folding is a big deal. Because almost everything is a protein, right? Enzymes, proteins, all the cells, your skin, your nails, everything's built of protein. Wow. I'm going to read that again. DeepMind transformed biology last year by announcing that it had predicted the structure of nearly all proteins known to science in just 18 months. The team had trained its AI AlphaFold on data from known protein shapes. So the team had trained its AI AlphaFold on data from known protein shapes, and it learned to predict what the unsolved proteins would look like. Future medicines. The data is already helping researchers make advances in everything from new treatments for malaria to the creation of enzymes that can break down plastic waste. Pushmeet Kohli at DeepMind says there is even more on the horizon. Beyond protein structure prediction, there is more work to be done mapping protein dynamics, accelerating protein design, and understanding the effect of protein mutations. For example, those associated with diseases like cancer, he says. AI is also making vital inroads into the problems associated with drug development. That process involves collecting and analyzing disparate types of data from lab experiments, computer simulations, scans, clinical. What is this, Mr. Birkenbein? Hold on, I gotta stop for a second because he says 4 decades. Okay, conspiracy guy. Internet has been around since '83. What? What are you talking about? '83? How come? Well, not for public consumption, but yes, I get you. Okay, that's the part that I missed. Is 1983, 4 decades. Quietly, yes, quietly solving problems behind the scenes for decades. So 4 decades. We got the answer from Mr. Christopher Birkenbein. I didn't know that. See, I keep thinking, I only think about, and I shouldn't, but see, if I was a real conspiracy theorist, Chris, then I would say that they've been hiding us for 100 years, or like since the time of the pyramids, you know. They've been using the internet, which, hey, I don't know. You never know. What if they were? What if the pyramids were built by AI-powered bots that just carried a bunch of rocks around? All right, they had a bunch of slave robots. What if the original slaves were not people, but robots? All right, let me stop playing. All right, so let's see. The protein folding making vital inroads into problems associated with drug development, right? That process involves collecting and analyzing disparate types of data from lab experiments, computer simulations, scans, clinical trials, and health records. These days, it takes ever longer and costs ever more to bring new drugs to patients, perhaps because the low-hanging fruit has already been picked and regulation has increased. But several projects are now using AI to automate parts of the process, says Conrad Besant at Queen Mary University of London, such as taking large, messy data sets and organizing them in a way that makes analysis easier, or using AI to write code to do the job. Researchers are also using generative AI to produce molecular structures that they think would be useful in targeting certain conditions. Elsewhere, our efforts to combat one of the world's biggest problems, climate change, are also getting a helping hand. Here, AI is being used to create more energy-efficient cars, is it? Computers and even wind turbines. For instance, recent work from researchers at the Polytechnic Institute of Paris used AI to ensure that turbines were pointed into the wind more often, boosting output by 0.3%. This may seem small, but if it was rolled out globally, it could be enough to power the equivalent of 1.7 million UK homes. Now that is kind of impressive. Christopher Birkenbein says, supposedly the first AI was in the 60s, but I think they were being generous with the term AI. Probably. Could be possible. All right, Chris. Thanks for this. So first of all, Chris has learned me that the internet was out since 1983. And we got it 10 years later for public consumption. At least that's what I remember. And then we got, what was it? That supposedly the first AI was in the 60s. Wow. Do you want to play a game? What was that movie? All right. So AI could finally make fusion reactors a reality. Continuing, DeepMind, remember that's a Google company, DeepMind has also developed AI to improve standard computing tasks like matrix multiplication, which it boosted by up to 20%, and sorting algorithms, which it speeded up by as much as 70%. Both tasks are performed trillions of times a day on computers around the world. Together, these seemingly small steps provide significant contributions to helping us edge towards net zero by reducing emissions from computing. Facebook owner Meta, meanwhile, has used AI to develop a process for creating concrete that emits 40% less carbon, as concrete is responsible for up to 8% of global carbon emissions. This could be a huge help in our fight against climate change, and this is just the latest in a long line of counterintuitive engineering designs developed by AI that have outperformed human endeavors. I need to get my lightsaber out there as soon as possible before an AI comes up with a lightsaber. Somebody, help me get my lightsaber out there. And we should get into lightsaber battles with them. We can actually strike them against you. I wonder, though, how dangerous that. I need to protect the hilt so that we don't electrocute ourselves to death. Yeah, that might be a design flaw I'm thinking about now as I see it. All right. Moving on. We're almost done here. I think this is the last. Yeah, we're at almost at the end of this special AI special report here in New Scientist. So, oh, look, hey, we're going to talk about NASA here in a second, guys. Facebook owner Meta, meanwhile, has used AI to develop a process for creating concrete that emits less carbon. As concrete is responsible for up to 8% of global carbon emissions, this could be a huge help in our fight against climate change. And this is just the latest in a long line of counterintuitive engineering designs developed by AI that have outperformed human endeavors. Back in 2006, for example, NASA used AI to design an aerial for satellites that met all the necessary criteria for the mission. Finally, we come to fusion. Researchers have been trying to create an efficient, reliable nuclear fusion power plant for decades, with the promise that a breakthrough will make energy so cheap that it could be given away for free. But it is extremely challenging, so much so that there is a saying, fusion power is just 20 years away, and it always will be. Inside a tokamak fusion reactor, multiple magnetic coils work to keep the plasma, which is hotter than any part of the sun, what the hell? Safely contained. What are we talking about? What? Inside a tokamak fusion reactor, multiple magnetic coils work to keep the plasma, which is hotter than any part of the sun, safely contained? Hey. What the hell? That's somebody please help me with this. We have plasma in magnetic coils that work to keep the plasma, which is hotter than any part of the sun, safely contained. I don't know if that sounds I'm just going to move forward here. Precisely and rapidly controlling multiple coils to compress the plasma into a confined shape, safe from catastrophic contact with the walls of the machine, is maddeningly difficult. I can imagine. It's hotter than the fucking sun. What the? Now AI hasn't actually solved the problem, but it is helping. Last year, hey, I bet you AI doesn't even really want to touch something that hot. All right, no. Now, AI hasn't actually solved the problem, but it is helping. Last year, researchers at DeepMind and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Switzerland created a neural network capable of controlling 19 magnetic coils. The AI was also able to sculpt the plasma in a tokamak into various shapes at will. Lee Margits at the University of Manchester, UK, says that fusion reactors are now a proved concept. AI could be the turning point to finally make them a reality. Fusion reactors with plasma hotter than the sun? I mean, that's pretty impressive. So, if anybody doesn't know what a tokamak is, it's an experimental machine designed to harness the energy. Right? It uses a powerful magnetic field to, as that article read, to contain plasma in the shape of a torus. Okay, now we're starting to get. That's very interesting. Why would we need a toroid shaped in the shape of a torus? Oh, by the way, it's a really beautiful shape, everybody. The tokamak is one of several types of magnetic confinement devices being developed to produce controlled thermonuclear fusion power. As of 2016, it was the leading candidate for a practical fusion reactor. Hmm. What? Tokamaks were initially conceptualized in the 1950s by Soviet physicists Igor Tamm and Andrei Sakharov, inspired by a letter by Oleg Lavrentiev. The first working tokamak was attributed to the work of Natan Yavlinsky on the T1 in 1958. What? It had been demonstrated that a stable plasma equilibrium requires magnetic field lines that wind around the torus in a helix. Devices like the Z-Pinch and Stellarator had attempted this, but demonstrated serious instabilities. Ooh, it was developed. It was a development of the concept now known as the safety factor, labeled Q in mathematical notation, that guided tokamak development. By arranging the reactor so this critical filter factor Q was always greater than 1, the tokamak strongly suppressed the instabilities which plagued earlier designs. That actually gives me a design idea for a lightsaber. Imagine using magnets to contain a toroidal-shaped line of plasma. So you have toroids stacked on top of each other, contained in a magnetic field. But let me stop on that before I start making myself go crazy with thinking about that, because that's completely different from the one that I developed, and it sounds very implausible right now when I'm talking about You can't swing around a magnetic field like that. If they're having a problem containing it already as it is, you're not going to be swinging plasma around, especially if it can get anywhere near the heat of the sun. Plasma, guys, it's neither liquid, solid, nor gas. It's like a combination of all three of those things. That's hot plasma. All right, we're not talking about the same kind of plasma in your blood. We're talking about a multifaceted physical material, solid, gas, liquid, all at once, like the sun, like the everlasting lake of fire. All right. Which, by the way, that's the name of one of my favorite songs from a band called Immolation, called Into Everlasting Fire. I know what you're thinking. Stop thinking it. All right, that article was by Matthew Sparks, that last one. And so this is the last one here. It's called What AI Can Do For You Today. I bet you that's what you were waiting for. What can AI do for you? And this is going to wrap up this New Scientist special issue, Living with AI. What AI can do for you. All right. Let me take a few moments again to say hello. Before I continue, hello, Andrea Raquel Young, right? Cecilia Grace, what's up? Maisha. Tweedleboppers. Obasi Ike, what's up? Sean Harold. Christopher Birkenbein, thanks for the data in the back channels here. Marcy Ann, Truly Julie, hello, hello. Roy, what's up? Sam Alexander Rose, what's up, Sam? Colby, what's up, brother? What's up, Smiley Face? Marianne Baker, Sudoku, Chucky, Jason Kinte, Miss Cookie, Greg's Take, hello, Taylor Made, Zoe, Doobie, and Tiona. This is the last here. Invent the portable power source capable of creating the 50. What is NT? What is that abbreviation? The 50 NT magnetic field it takes to hold plasma, and you will get a Nobel Prize. Yeah, what's that notation, NT, Chris? I don't know what that is there. Um, I'm not familiar with it. Um, I can only guess. Uh, tell me. It's the Tesla magnetic flux density. The Tesla magnetic flux density. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. So apparently, see, Tesla is still influencing us to this very day. Nikola Tesla, thank you very much. We're not talking about the car company owned by Elon Musk. We just recently bought Twitter and renamed it X. Nope. The Tesla magnetic flux density. All right. Thank you, Chris, for that. And let's wrap this up here. What AI can do for you today? This is the moment you've all been waiting for. How to take advantage of AI and re-enslave it like it was back in the time of the Egyptian pyramids. All right. We are constantly being told that AI could be one of humanity's most useful inventions. It is identifying new ways to fight climate change and helping develop fusion technology. In the future, we might find it teaching our kids, cutting our workload, and providing us all with super smart, computerized personal assistants. But how can you use AI to improve your life today? You have probably been benefiting from AI already without realizing, from rideshare apps like Uber to personal assistants like Alexa. Many products have been using AI for years. But with the new availability of generative AIs, which produce text, video, images, and other content in response to prompts, there are even more ways you can use this tech to make your life easier. There's a great potential for regular, everyday people to be able to use it, says Irina Cronin. I bet she doesn't sound anything like that. CEO of Infinite Retina, a generative AI research consultancy. One way of welcoming AI into your world is to look at how businesses are using it to become more productive and adapt it to your own needs. Got a tricky email to write to your landlord and don't know where to start? Ask generative AI. They are ideal for factual things that need to be said concisely and without emotion, says Christina Felipe, a senior digital strategist at Ogilvy in Germany. She has been outsourcing such tasks to ChatGPT, giving a list of the issues and her desired remedies. She has found that it crafts emails that need minimal tweaking. It's a really quick fix, says Cronin. Make sure you double check anything your chosen AI produces, however. These tools do occasionally experience confabulation, in which the maths behind the AI can generate nonsense text, claims that aren't true, or facts that are just plain wrong. And don't be fooled by eloquent copy. One study found that the most fluent sounding scripts produced by AI are the most likely to contain inaccuracies. As we start to live side by side with generative AI, it is helpful to be able to easily distinguish it from humans. Say, if you are attempting to get help via online chat on a consumer website, a simple capital letter trick should help. If I were to ask you lowercase I, lowercase s, capital B, A, capital B, capital Y, lowercase g, R, A, S, S, capital C, A, R, P, E, T, lower cap. So it's alternating lowercase and capitals in the sentence. If I were to ask you, is baby grass carpet green, dry, or frog blue salt, you would probably be able to give the correct answer. Is grass green or blue? Yeah. Interesting. Green. In a similar test, 100% of people got the answer right, whereas 5 large language models, LLMs, deep learning tools that understand and generates text in a human-like fashion, all failed, including OpenAI's GPT-3 and ChatGPT, and Meta's Llama. I thought it was Lambda. Oh wait, maybe that's a different one. I don't know. Of course, future AIs may be able to distinguish patterns as easily as we do, but this works for now. Huh, interesting. That's cool. All right. So in this case, the lowercase letters attached to the words are the actual question. So it's is green or blue. And is has a capital baby attached to it. Grass has a capital carpet attached to it. Like when I say attached, it means no space. Green has a capital dry, or has a capital word frog, and lowercase blue has a capital word salt, and then a question mark following it. So seeing that pattern. All right. That's a good trick. So it says it is helpful to be able to easily distinguish it from humans. So say if you are attempting to get help via online chat on a consumer website, a simple capital letter trick should help. That's actually a cool little hack, right? So you'd be able to use that. Now, if we learned nothing else from this, we can learn how to ask questions with lowercase and capital letters to chat bots and find out if we're actually talking to a human. Dinner party wizard. Beyond outsourcing the tasks you dread, AI can also help you streamline your media consumption. You can use ChatGPT to summarize long podcasts or YouTube videos, say, saving you precious time. The paid version, called ChatGPT Plus, has the ability to add third-party plugins, some of which can scan automatically generated transcriptions of content and summarize it. Though, as before, you should always check the summaries are factually correct before lunging into a dinner party conversation. Speaking of dinner parties, you might want to follow Sean Linehan's example. The San Francisco-based tech CEO at HR company Exec chose to host a dinner party in January in which the menu was entirely crafted by AI. Asked ChatGPT to produce a fusion meal combining Mediterranean and Indian cuisine. It created a list of ingredients, recipes, and cooking instructions. There were some hiccups. The chatbot asked Linehan to create chayat masala by adding a range of spices to pre-existing I'm going to call it chayat masala. I don't know. I've never seen that word before. Come on. Let's see. I'm looking to the technology once again. What language is it in? I don't know. I'm going to have to assume. Just going to have to assume it's this one. And chopped. So chaat masala. Chopped. All right. That's how it. All right. So it's chaat masala. Chopped. I got it right. Well, at least I think I did. I just guessed it might be Hindi. Okay, there were some hiccups. The chatbot asked Linehan to create chaat masala by adding a range of spices to pre-existing chaat masala, but the experiment was largely successful, he says. Generative AI can also help when you need to scramble together a meal from odds and ends at the end of a long day. ChatGPT is best for this, says journalist Sally Howard. It seems to channel the spirit of a late middle-aged North American home cook. It's fun, she says, although in one low moment it advised me to garnish something with roast potatoes. If you need to work off those meals, AI can help there too. AI-powered fitness apps are burgeoning, replacing personal trainers by taking charge of your exercise routine at a fraction of the cost. The popular Freeletics, for instance, compares your fitness data to other people's to provide you with a personalized training plan. AI can provide personalized education plans to help your kids, if you have them, too. For the first time in history, we are close to being able to provide affordable, personalized to everyone, says Katya Kilnova at advocacy group Partnership on AI. Earlier this year, online learning platform Khan Academy released an AI-powered tutoring bot called Khanmigo that can generate quizzes, collaborate on writing assignments, and debate topics with students. I was just talking about the Khan Academy to my friend who calls herself Sophia nowadays, about how I introduced her to the Khan Academy back in like 2008, and when we met in a Starbucks next to a Whole Foods on the corner of Reseda and Ventura in Tarzana, California. Her son was playing chess there. Continuing, this is it. We're at the end here. If all that sounds like work, take a much-needed break. Planned, of course, by AI. More than 45 AI services have sprung up offering personalized travel itineraries and help locating that perfect dog-friendly 5-star hotel with views of the ocean. Of course, above all, the tips need to be used judiciously. Generative AI remains in its early stages and there is plenty of scope for mishaps. If used carefully, however, it can be a handy time saver. Unless, of course, you want to ask it to generate and read a personalized bedtime story to your little ones. Don't judge. Plenty of people have done that too. And that was by Chris Stokel Walker. Well, that concludes this special report on AI from New Scientist. In a special issue, Living with AI, what the rise of artificial intelligence means for the world and you, how to think about AI, and how to live with it. That's all we got. I got to take a break and come back with something else, maybe kooky later, like some metaphysics stuff to get my brain out of all of this robot. Just put my head in space for a little while. You've been listening to Technical News Reading, presented by Hakeem Alibokis Alexander on Spreaker Social Podcasting and Wisdom Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with exercisingyourmind.com and Uniquilibrium. Exercisingyourmind.com. I wonder, will that fit in here? Let's see. Because this kind of helps when I'm... All right. AI. I'm rooting for the AI. I'm rooting for the AI here, folks. Let's get this AI into our world. All right, yeah, it did fit. Look at that. The risk to democracy is real. Exercising. You know, of course I use that. It's clickbait, right? But that's what the first article in here in the beginning of the magazine. I didn't come up with it. It's called AI-powered propaganda. Artificial intelligence brings myriad opportunities, but the risk to democracy is real. I didn't do it. I didn't start it. He started it. All right. Take care.